Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to SADS Facebook Live number 62. I'm usually in a different place for all of these, as in the office of Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota, but I just finished giving my first off-campus live grand rounds at Mayo Clinic, Florida. So I'm with you, greeting you from Jacksonville, Florida, and great to be with you. I'm Mike Ackerman, genetic cardiologist at the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota, and director of Mayo's Winland Smith Rice Genetic Heart Rhythm Clinic. And on behalf of Alice Laura, the CEO of the Sudden Arrhythmia Death Syndrome Foundation, the SADS Foundation, it's great to have you. We're so glad you chose to join us on this incredibly special day. It's the first Friday of May, but more importantly, it is our celebration of all of you moms out there. So happy Mother's Day to all of you, the moms that I have had the privilege of caring for as my patient, the moms that I've had the blessed privilege of caring for, your sons and daughters as your children who are my patients, for all of the moms who are part of the SADS Foundation, either directly because the condition is yours or indirectly because the condition is your child's or your brothers or sisters. Moms, we cherish you and we want you to feel celebrated today on this Mother's Day celebration for SADS Foundation. So I'm glad you could join us. I'm eager to see who was able to join on in today. And I see some of our friends coming in, and I'm doing this from my phone because we had a little glitch a couple minutes ago. So I can't see the comments as easily, but we'll make this work. And if I disappear on you early because of technical difficulties, just know that we cherish you, we're grateful for you, and we want you to feel loved on this Mother's Day weekend. And you are a blessing to so very many people, not just your own families. So before I introduce you to three incredible moms and young women and great individuals who I know personally. Just a reminder, COVID pandemic continues, doesn't it? And my, is it incredibly terrible in India. So all of us do the thing. I have only one hand. Mask up when you need to. I'm outside alone, and so I don't have a mask on. You don't have to wear a hat unless you're in the sun, but if you do wear a hat, not bad wearing the hat of the national champions, Sikkim Bears. So I just had to add that in one more time. We've been champions for 4 weeks. The lots of cases, isn't there? I was looking up this morning, and we've had more than 91,000 new cases of COVID across the world since last Friday. Uh, and, and and actually, I take that back. We've had over 6 million cases, 91,000 deaths since last week's program. In the United States, we're at 32.6 million cases, 580,000 plus deaths. We've had 5,000 more deaths in the United States since last Friday. Now, good news, if there's good in any of this, is the cases are coming way down. We registered some of the fewest daily cases in a long time, 47,000 new cases in the United States yesterday. That's down 11,000 from last week alone, and down from, remember, the highest was when we crossed over 300,000 cases just on January 2nd, just that day alone. So we're making progress. Get the vaccine. I've heard a lot of comments circulating around of, is the vaccine QT safe? Yes, yes, and yes, meaning any of the vaccines, every one of the COVID-19 vaccines are absolutely QT safe. They're Brugada safe. They are ARV safe. They're CPVT safe. They are safe. There's no signal. I'm not aware of a single signal of concern about a cardiac safety issue in general or a QT safety issue in particular with the vaccine. So fear not. Get the vaccine if it's your time, if you're old enough, if you're eligible for it, and let's continue to get through this. Well, that's enough because I want to spend all of our time that we have with three wonderful women who represent all of the moms of the SADS Foundation. And Erin, with her magic, is going to bring them on. And as we hear their stories, what I'm going to try to do also is I'll try to bounce back and forth to the comment screen. And if you have anything that you're wanting to say about your mom, I'll try to grab it and I'll try to read it so that we can celebrate Mother's Day together in that way. But before I read your celebration and your comments to your mom, let me see. Oh, there they are. I was on the wrong page. It is so good. And in my screen, I don't know how you see them, and they can wave. It's great to have Lene Righeimer with us and Julie Kotraba. And guess what? It's a mother, daughter. So, and Julie's daughter, Kellie Moore, is with us. So thank you, each of you, for taking the time out of your Friday afternoon to join us. Great to have you. Well, why don't we get started with you, Julie? Julie, give us a sense of your SADS journey with whatever your family's genetic heart condition is, how your story started. And I know full well for a lot of moms out there, the stories are not all good. Some are profoundly tragic. Some have silver linings. The moms are still waiting for the silver linings to come. And so I know that in a day of celebration of Mother's Day, for some it may be a sad day and a bitter day. But let's hear what things are like for Julie and Kellie's family. So Julie, tell us a little bit about your story.
All right. My mother, Betty, went into cardiac arrest when she was in her 40s. And we later found out it was because she was low in potassium from a diuretic and didn't know anything about long QT syndrome. She did live through that episode and was able to find a doctor that diagnosed her. It took a couple years, but they figured out that it was long QT syndrome. And through that, we found the SADS Foundation and Dr. Vincent. And in before we had genetic testing done, we were able to find a physician who did treat long QT patients. Kellie was our only child at the time, and she and I were both borderline. So it was hard to know whether we should be treated or not. But because of our history with my mother, he decided to monitor us a couple times a year, and then later decided to treat us as if we did have it with a low dose of beta blockers. And then our second child was born, and her QT interval was much easier to diagnose than ours. And soon after that, we had genetic testing done through Dr. Vincent and LDS Hospital at University of Utah, and found out that we all were positive for type 2 long QT syndrome, and started being treated with beta blockers to manage exactly what we had at that time. And that was in 2000. In 2002, when our son was born, he had genetic testing, and we knew within about a week or two of his birth that he also had long QT syndrome. So right now we have my mother, who is 86, living and thriving with long QT syndrome. My oldest daughter, Kellie, my middle daughter, Carrie, and my youngest, Cameron, is 19. And Kellie's daughter, who is 4, also has type 2 long QT syndrome. So we have a long line of people living and thriving. The SADS Foundation has been our home, our anchor, and our place of safety for information, for getting us to the doctors that we needed to get to, for finding out and helping us with resources like getting AEDs in our children's schools, in our home. They have been a wealth of information, our heart, and our safe spot. So we are thankful for the SADS Foundation.
Well, thanks a lot, Julie. And that's so 4 generations living with your LQT2.
Yes. And that, I believe, is because, well, I have told all of my children, you are not flawed. This is not a mistake. You have been created by a mighty creator. You have been intricately knit together. You have a very powerful, meaningful purpose for your life. And I have had to release all of my children knowing I cannot hold them here, even though I would like to control, every moment of their life. That there have been a time with each of them where I've had to just release them and say, no matter how much medicine there is, no matter how much care there is, all of their days were already ordained. And there's not a lot I can do to change that. But I can be their strongest advocate. I can make sure they have a team of advocates around them, and I can love them. But no amount of worrying or fretting I do is going to change some things. And if I spend my life doing that, I will miss out and they will miss out. So we do our best with what we have, and we're thankful for the SADS Foundation to arm us with what we need as mothers to protect our kids as much as we can, knowing that we are not God.
So Kellie, I'm going to come back to you. We could have an interesting conversation about the controlling part, but we won't. We'll talk about a few other things with growing up, knowing that you've had long QT from basically the day you were born. But before we do that, I want to turn to Lene, because I'm very aware of Lene's story and her family story. And unlike Julie and Kellie's, where everything's all well, Lene represents where there's a profound tragedy that sets a story in motion. And Lene, you want to give us a sense of what your SADS journey has been like so far?
I will. Thank you, Dr. Ackerman, and thank you, Julie and Kellie. And you described it very beautifully, Julie. First, you have to let go and let God. That's one thing I've learned the hard way. Our journey began in 2003 when we lost my oldest daughter, Rebecca. She was 4 years, 8 months, and 15 days. Not that I'm counting, right? But she was my first, my oldest, and she was the one who made me a mother. Um, Rebecca just suddenly collapsed one evening, December 27, 2003. She just had a bath and she was running around playing while I was getting her 2-year-old sister dressed. And I thought she was joking or playing around. I could not get in contact with her. We got 911 on the phone. We had the paramedics. Rebecca was resuscitated after 50 minutes, but at that time, she had not had enough oxygen to the brain and she passed away at Children's Hospital of Orange County 24 hours later. Um, we did not know at that time long QT what it was. I simply, it took 2 years before we had a diagnosis of long QT. We have since then been diagnosed with long QT type 1. Um, I guess the most common form of long QT syndrome. Um, we were at the hospital and they knew it was a heart-related issue. Not very many doctors were able to pinpoint at that time. I know now we know a lot more about long QT. Um, the one doctor mentioned, "Have you heard of long QT syndrome?" And I hadn't. And I had a good friend who wrote it down on a piece of paper at the hospital. For all I know, my husband had sprayed for ants the day before. I thought, oh my goodness, she's been poisoned. It just went on and on for a couple of years until we, through Dr. Ackerman's laboratory, was able to indeed diagnose. We did not have blood from Rebecca. Her diagnosis came through the little infant blood screening card that we had sent from the state of California to the Mayo Clinic. I had emailed one of your colleagues, Dr. Ackerman, Dr. Skinner from New Zealand, and he had indeed done that genetic testing through a blood screening card and suggested that I send it to you. And we were at that time a lot of research-based volunteer work on behalf of Mayo and Dr. Ackerman and David Tester, but they were able to. 2 years later, I got a call that indeed they have pinpointed the non-QT type 1 through Rebecca's blood infant screening card. And I should also mention that I was pregnant at the time when Rebecca passed away. I was 5 months pregnant with our now beautiful, loving Ellie, and she is just turned 17. She's been a patient of Dr. Ackerman since she was a baby, and she is living and thriving with QT type 1. She is on a beta blocker, and she's doing really well and has remained asymptomatic throughout her life. And Ellie got a little bit of, she was sluggish, tired from the beta blocker. She was on a hefty dose. However, through the Mayo Clinic, she was also able to get a left cardiac sympathetic innovation surgery in 2018. And we have now been able to lower her beta blocker, and she's doing so well and has more energy, and we couldn't be happier. And we feel just really, really blessed to be able to have a daughter who lives and thrives with long QT. I'm very grateful.
Well, thanks so much, Lene. And I think of you, and I think of, as I do so many of my patients, every Mother's Day, and I think of the fathers on Father's Day as well. But this is Mother's Day, and again, for those of you who have joined us, where your story is more like Lene's, and there is a deep sadness that changes over the years, and maybe I can come back, Lene, and ask you about that in a little bit. And if your story is more like that, and maybe your story isn't 2003, maybe it's just last year. I know we all know, and the moms know probably even better than I, what that sense of deep grief must be for you, going through potentially this first Mother's Day without your child. It's an unfathomable thought. And so we're with you, we're thinking of you. SADS is here for you. And so whether your story is perhaps fresh and raw and awful, or whether there's been the seasoning of time to change awful to, I guess, less awful, or whether it's caught in a way that happened for Julie's family, the SADS Foundation is your home. Speaking of a home, Kellie, you grow up in a home of a loving mother. I learned from Julie just now, maybe controlling, she said. So what was it like growing up, knowing from essentially as early as you could know that you had some genetic condition, and then transitioning to dealing with the knowledge that, quote unquote, you passed it on to your daughter. Give us some insights into what your walk has been like.
Yeah, well, as you mentioned, I grew up always knowing, pretty much as long as I could remember, knowing that I have long QT syndrome. And my parents did a great job of instilling in us, like my mom talked about, that we were not made, that we were made the way we are for a reason, and that we were intricately knit together. And I think that always gave me a lot of confidence, and I didn't think about it as like, oh, there's something big that's wrong with me, or I am broken, or anything like that. It was just, oh, I have this heart condition and this is a part of my life. And because I never really knew any different, it's always just been my normal. There wasn't like a big before and after. It's just, this is what my life is. And so I don't know any different. And I think that in a lot of ways, I think that I realize that there's a great blessing in that, because I don't have anything else to compare it to. And my parents also did a great job of just encouraging us to not take our lives for granted, and to really appreciate every single day, and also to really live our lives. And we've all done a lot, my sister and I both grew up in dance, and we've all done a lot of theater. And so we found a lot of ways to just make our lives really full. And I've also seen a lot of ways that long QT syndrome has been a force for positive change. So for instance, when I was in high school, there's all the PE requirements that you have to do. And I remember we ran into some challenges at my school with things like the timed mile and having to do things that I knew that if I pushed myself too hard, that wouldn't be good for my heart, that could be dangerous. And so my mom was a strong ally in working with the school to protect me, but also in turn, we protected other students, and the school ended up creating an adaptive PE program for students who had different just physical limitations and needed to listen to their bodies in a different way. And so I think growing up, I just always knew that it was something where I didn't see it as a limitation, but it was something that we could take this condition and be empowered by it and work for good and work for positive change. And so then fast forward to adulthood, when I knew, we were planning on starting a family. I think because of the way that my parents talked about long QT syndrome and treated us with it, it wasn't ever something that I worried about or felt guilty about possibly passing on. It was sort of like, well, there's a chance I might pass this on, but there's also a chance I might not. And I know that I've lived a very full life with it. And so if we have children who have this condition, then I know kind of what to do to help keep them safe, but also to help them live very full lives with it. And so my daughter was diagnosed. I knew that we wanted to have genetic testing done as soon as possible. And when she was born, she was in the NICU for a few days for low blood sugar. And then she actually got transferred to St. Louis Children's Hospital for long QT syndrome specific monitoring, just to keep an eye on her heart, and also to get that's where we had genetic testing done. And so I think we got that done on a Friday, and found out not too long after that she did indeed have long QT syndrome. And I think, and that's also where we went ahead and started her on beta blockers. Her doctor there said it'd be better, let's treat her like she does have it, so that way she is protected. Based on her EKGs, it looked like she had it. And so they said, while we're waiting for the genetic testing, let's go ahead and just get her protected and treat her as if she does have it. And she is now living and thriving 4-year-old, and she takes her beta blocker really well every day, her tiny pill. She loves, I need to take my tiny pill. And as of right now, she doesn't really have a concept of, she doesn't know she has long QT syndrome. She knows every so often we go to the special doctor to get her heart checked to make sure she stays healthy. And she takes her tiny pill to make sure she stays healthy. And that's the extent of it. And then as she gets older, of course, I'll tell her more and she'll get more information. But for right now, I think she doesn't ask, and so she doesn't need to know a lot right now. And I've tried to keep it very positive with her, but we're just making sure so you can stay healthy, and framing it in that way, because I don't want her to grow up being afraid or thinking that there's something broken.
Right. And Kellie, can I have you and your mom and Lene as well touch on, you commented about not feeling guilty about the possibility of passing it on, not hesitating to start your family and have your beautiful daughter. What would you say for the patients? And I've taken care of so many where the young women and the young men have said, I'm not going to have a child. I'm not going to pass this on. I'm not going to do this to my child, whether this is long QT or CPVT or Brugada or ARVC. And over the years, I've told all of them with as much confidence as I can that there may or may not be reasons to choose not to be a mom, not to be a dad, but don't let one of those reasons be this disease of yours, this long QT or this CPVT. We can treat it. We're good at treating it. When we know it's there, tragedies don't happen to families like Lene. When we know that, when we find it and know of it ahead of time, tragedies almost never happen. Of course, there have been some exceptions. And we try to help these often young adolescent females who are far more contemplating that future than my adolescent males are. And what would you say from, woman to woman to encourage them if they're wrestling with this guilt sensation, or I can't take the chance of passing this on. I don't know how I could do this and feel good about myself if I passed it on to my child. And you grew up that whole way, Kellie, so you were almost sort of vaccinated from the possibility of guilt, just the way your mom raised you. But Julie, did you have any sense of that once you knew of it? How did you deal with it? What would you tell the young girls, the young women who are harboring that deep sense of guilt and the reluctance to start a family or ever become a mom because of their heart condition?
I think I would probably repeat what you said, that this is treatable and easy to treat and typically responds well. And in those cases where people don't respond well to beta blockers, there are other options. Two, this is a hard one for me because I haven't struggled with guilt. I knew when we had my second child and my son that I had long QT syndrome, but I didn't want to not give them life out of fear or I don't know what to say because I haven't faced that.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm thankful. I think there are so many different conditions that people can have. Some we know about, some we don't know about. And if we wanted to raise or bear the perfect child, it honestly just isn't possible. That we don't know what will happen. And there are some things that we do know, but most of them we don't. So the chance of having, for me, I was told I had a 50-50 chance with each child, whether they would carry this gene or not. And all three of my children carry it. So of course there was hope. When I had my son, I thought, he won't have it. The other two already do. So I was surprised when I got the call. And I actually asked if we could repeat the test because I was so stunned that all three of them would. And I thought when they did the test, they did it with a swab. It was blood on the girls. And he was a newborn, and I thought, could there have been my DNA from breastfeeding him, on that swab or anything? Can we just make sure? But it wasn't because I was afraid that he had it. It was, I wanted to know for certain how to deal with it. And the same thing when my children were in my womb, I thought, whatever happens that we see through ultrasound or different things in medicine, it didn't mean that I would choose whether or not to have them. It would be then I could arm myself with what I need to take care of them, that I would deal with whatever came.
Right. And Lene, if I could, and again, I know probably doing even a program like this, you can probably take your heart and soul instantaneously back to when your daughter died, and probably those first minutes, days, weeks, months, it took everything you could just to get up and breathe. How do you take it step by step then and now? And for maybe if we have a mom joining us where this Mother's Day is the first Mother's Day without their child because they're going through right now what you did back then with your Rebecca, how did you do it? What were some steps forward? Does it get easier? Does it get different?
Thank you for the question, Dr. Ackerman. Yes, it does. It does get easier. I'm in a very different place now. It's almost 17 years since Rebecca passed now. But that first Mother's Day, for whoever a new bereaved mom who's out there, it is very difficult. But I want you to know that things does get better. I look at all the gifts that it sounds strange for someone who's newly bereaved, but there are beautiful gifts that have come from Rebecca and her life and her legacy that today, I believe she's watching over us, and there's gifts that comes with it. It's difficult to see the first year or two because just getting up in the morning, brushing your teeth, or getting out of bed is difficult. I remember that and I was also pregnant with Ellie at the time, and I thought, oh, I gotta eat something, or this baby's not gonna make it. It definitely does get easier, and also I think I also had a 50-50 chance, what I was told, of passing on QT on, but I have four daughters. I have two that had it, and two that don't. And life is dangerous. I mean, you could get hit by a car tomorrow. Stuff happens, but that's long QT is not the reason why you shouldn't have a baby. It didn't occur to me. I had two more children after losing Rebecca. It's one day at a time. The first couple of years, yes, it's difficult, but life gets better. You learn to compartmentalize. Um, I am going through boxes of pictures. You take your pictures out. Like Rebecca is still. We have her pictures all over the house. Like I do of my other daughters. We talk about her. There's not a stigma, or we talk about her to other people. We keep her part of our everyday life. Um, of course, it's a new normal. You learn to cope, and we create new traditions. First Mother's Day, you know, um, just talk about it. We light a candle for Rebecca on her birthday. We have a birthday cake for her. We do something in her honor, in her memory. Rebecca lives with us still every day.
Well, thanks for that, Lene. And for all of you out there who have been posting some comments, we could probably spend an hour reading them. And I'm going to grab two that I just caught my eye from Heather, wanting to give a shout out to her mom, Judy. So Judy, you know who you are, and like Julie and her daughter here, she has LQT2. And Heather is saying that Judy, the mom, you're the one who first put all the pieces together, that my symptoms were something bigger. She's the one who presented my case to the cardiologist. She was working with it at the time. She's the one who took me to see Dr. Ackerman every 6 months. She's the one who helped me understand the possibilities of me passing the gene to my son. She's the one who helped me cope with my son being diagnosed. And again, I think to you, Judy, happy Mother's Day. Your Heather's everything, and like so many moms, what a beautiful, just a tribute to you. And then I think this one for Miranda, I want to just comment on, because she appreciates what you had to say, Kellie and Lene, about the idea of giving it on and passing it on. And Miranda always knew that I wanted to be a mom. She got her CPVT diagnosis when she was 17, and she says she feels guilty every day that 3 of her kids have it, and wondering how to live life with it. And Miranda, I can't wait to see the next chapter of your journey. You will get answers at your next evaluation. I don't know if those answers will enable you to let the guilt go, but all I can say is there's no value in guilt. There's no energy and room for the guilt feeling. All the things that you've also given to your children are beyond measure and are amazing, and they may not be able to be tabulated as easy as heads, your egg has it, tails, your egg does not have the long QT gene or the CPVT gene in your case. So, but it is a common, that this guilt sensation that so many young women are going through with these genetic heart conditions. Maybe that's something that we at the SADS Foundation can take as a charge to say we got to figure out ways to help with that. Let me give you all the last comment in general, either what SADS has done or what you can do your own live right here on the air before a gazillion people, Kellie. Tribute to your mom on Mother's Day right now. But I'm going to give it to each one of you. I'll let Lene, you go first, Julie, and then Kellie. I'll give you a few seconds to prepare that shout out to your mom, who happens to be right here in front of the millions and millions of listeners. Lene.
Thank you, Dr. Ackerman. This was such a treat to be on here. I feel so connected. Like this is my people, and it makes me feel comfortable to finally. And happy Mother's Day to my mother. She's in heaven. But happy Mother's Day to all the beautiful moms out there in the SADS community and beyond. Hang in there. Life is precious, and life is special and good, and very grateful to be here. Thank you.
Thanks, Lene.
I also would like to say thank you, Dr. Ackerman, for having us on, and thank you for all that you do. Lene, it is such a privilege to meet you and to hear about your beautiful Rebecca. And I wish you a happy Mother's Day. And I wish my mother, who's 86, a happy Mother's Day. She's a beautiful example of living well and appreciating every moment. And I wish my daughter a happy Mother's Day. She's such a wonderful mama to her kids, and it is a joy to watch her.
That's sweet.
Well, thank you, Dr. Ackerman and the SADS Foundation for having us on. This has been great. Happy Mother's Day to anyone who is, to the moms who are pregnant out there and worried, and just know that with knowledge, like, you will find your way through. And that the SADS Foundation and knowledge are great allies, and that there are so many other moms out there also for support. And happy Mother's Day, Lene. Thank you for sharing your story, and I'm going to go give my 4-year-old an extra big hug. And happy Mother's Day, Mom. Thank you for raising all of us to live in hope and not in fear, and to see the beauty in every day, and to know that we're not flawed or sick. Our bodies were just made differently, and they were made that way for a reason.
Well, thank you to the 3 of you. I'm so glad that you took the time out of your day. And so from the SADS Foundation, thank you. For all of you out there, join us next week for your questions that the Vice President of the Board, Susan Etheridge, a dear friend of mine, and I will tackle. And we'll take every one of your questions. We love that time. But before we say goodbye, let me, on behalf of the SADS Foundation, give our happy Mother's Day to all of the moms of all of the SADS families out there. You are amazing. I see what you do. I see how you are. I see what you are like in 2003 and what you're like now. Uh, Beautiful, beautiful people. And I love what Kellie just said, and leave knowing it full well that you are indeed moms, your children, fearfully and wonderfully made. And so I can't wait to be with you again next Friday. But let's celebrate this whole Mother's Day weekend, and on Sunday, happy Mother's Day. See you next week.